Right, well, hello YouTube. So I have an announcement, which is I am getting a vasectomy. Um, in fact, by the time this video has been released, hopefully I already will have the vasectomy. Although I'm recording it before getting it, and there is the possibility that I will just be a pussy and not do it, and in that case, this will be a very different kind of video and it will have a very different ending. But either way, it's going to be going out. So you now have some tension has been introduced, some dramatic tension, which will hopefully keep you watching to the end. Will Kane get his balls cut off? No, that's
I,
definitely not going to happen. That's not what it is.
I really
It's a
like that you've adopted my bullying language of "don't be a pussy." I appreciate that that is all you have to say about it now.
okay. So um, yeah, so that's what is going to happen, and I wanted to. So
Not the balls cutting off. That's not
no,
what's
no,
going to happen.
that's that
It's a
that
minor incision.
it's just like a tiny little. There's like a tiny cutting of tubes. It's fine. My balls will be fine. But I thought it would be good to make a video about it. I mean, part of the reason why is just because, obviously everybody's aware that this is an option. But I think it's nice to have just people visibly doing these sorts of things and taking these options. Um, and yeah, I mean, hey, it might make for interesting content. There might be interesting things to talk about. My friend Cole is here because she is the queen of body autonomy. So the queen of body,
Not that. Not that.
what? That's what she told me to call her, and now she
No,
doesn't
I told
want
you
the
not
title.
that.
Um, so okay, what title do you want? Anyway, she's here because she's had a similar. Do you want me to edit that out? I feel kind of bad now. That
No,
was
no, it's hilarious.
okay. Um,
It's just
well,
like the most inappropriate juxtaposition of words, right? Like to be like the ruler of other people's body autonomy,
yeah.
right?
Okay.
It's a horrible juxtaposition. I appreciate it.
So anyway, she's had a similar experience. Well, I mean, similarly, has been sterilized, and yeah. So and so may have some things to say. All right. Well, I suppose then I should start. I mean, actually, when I was initially conceiving of this video, I did think it might end up being a bit of a story. There might be a bit of a story to it, because I wasn't sure if it would be that easy for me to actually get a vasectomy. I am, I mean, I'm unmarried. I do not have children. I'm, not. I mean, I'm on the younger side. I mean, I'm not like 20 anymore, but I'm 31. So, doctors can be a bit reluctant to perform this kind of surgery on people like me. But actually, it was no problem at all. Yeah, it's fine. It's going to happen, and there was no difficulty whatsoever. Um, so, yeah. Now,
Did you? I haven't asked you this actually. Did you end up using that list of physicians I
no.
gave you, or were you? So I think part of the reason you thought it might be difficult is because I struggled for 10 years to get my tubal ligation and spent countless thousand. Well, no, I can count them. It's about $23,000 all told. Interviewing and meeting new physicians and traveling and going through psych evals and everything else they made me do before I was able to get my tubes tied. So not countless thousands of dollars, $23,000, like a decent down payment on a house, was spent trying to get my tubes tied. And you were well aware of this and called me and you're like, oh, it's going to be a thing. I was
Yeah.
like, I don't think it's going to be a thing.
No, but I mean, it does still. I mean, look, when you look into this online, I mean, it does say that physicians can be reluctant to perform vasectomies on people in my kind of position, um, because vasectomy is irreversible. I mean, technically it is reversible, but that's very difficult, and I mean, it doesn't always
There's
work. So,
success.
mm,
It's the way they like you to conceive of it.
right, yeah. So they prefer to conceive it as irreversible. Apparently, unlike accidentally having a kid, for instance, which I guess that's not reversible, is it? Being
Just have an abortion.
well, it's all right. Yeah, I mean that's an option, but no, I mean as so from my point of view, it's like okay, if I got somebody pregnant, then I don't know. That seems like that would have an irreversible impact on my life as well.
Oh
Um,
yeah. I was just
but
thinking because you're on the passive side once it happens.
right, yeah, yeah. Um, so why did I choose to get the vasectomy? Well, actually, I think I've pretty much always had some desire to be sterile. I've never ever wanted kids. I've been very firm on never wanting kids, and not only have I not wanted kids, but I, I don't even really want to have the capacity to have kids. I remember being like, I don't know, 11 years old or something, and when I first heard about vasectomies, thinking, oh yeah, that sounds cool. So, I've always had some desire for this. And so okay, I don't want kids. Um, the there are a variety of methods of birth control, but the sort of standard methods of birth control are not great. I mean, condoms are surprisingly ineffective. I mean, putting aside like any, like let's say the aesthetic judgment one might have about condoms. I mean, they're not particularly fun things to use. They're very useful, right? But even putting that point aside, they're actually just not very effective. And so it's just like okay, I would prefer something that's a bit more reliable, I suppose. Um,
Well, and
and
I mean, I think it's worth talking about the doubt you felt when you called me, or
well, I was going
rather,
to get to that, yeah. Um,
I'm sorry.
so
Go ahead.
yeah, I was initially just talking about like why I've always wanted to have a vasectomy, and and then like, um, but anyway, so the point is, look, it's a very well, yeah, I mean, as far as medical procedures go, remarkably safe, and very effective as a form of birth control. And it means that it removes my ability to have kids. That's really cool. Like just removing the capacity. I don't want the capacity there, even if it never happens. It would be cool to just remove that capacity. So okay, now I did, as Cole mentions, I did waver on this. So why was it that I wavered on it? I have a really bad memory. What was it? You might
Well,
remember better than I did.
when you left me a voice note, it's a pretty strong waiver. I mean, clearly, and I think this is probably a good opportunity to talk about, human reasoning capacities with information. Uh, Anyone approaching a surgery, be it on their balls or fallopian tubes or face or whatever, is going to be weighing negative and positive information. And we have a cognitive bias that causes us to, weigh negative outcomes, negative information more heavily than positive information. And I think just in the moment when confronted with the possibility of complications, which, after meeting with your physician for the first
Oh
time,
yeah,
you
I remember this now.
knew, the possibility of like granuloma. And I mean, that's basically the only complication for men. Lifelong pain
Yeah,
was the
yeah.
other
That
one.
was so. That
Just like,
is the thing. There is a small risk of chronic testicular pain, and that sounds like it would be very bad. Like I don't really want that.
well,
um,
and the practical reasons at that point would not be enough. the message you left me was like, oh, condoms aren't that bad, and they've worked so far. Again, you kind of put aside all the positive information and just focused in on this minute possibility of a negative outcome, which is okay. That's normal. It's human. At which point I called you a pussy.
Well,
Because as compared to the abdominal surgery I went through, um, yeah, it did kind of seem that way. But also, I mean, maybe you have more to say about why, now that I've reminded you about why you were ready to pull out, pun intended.
um, yeah. So, I mean, so now I could, yeah, I now remember. So, there is well, I was going to say significant. It's not like significant. There is a risk of a long-term testicular pain, and that's a problem because I don't want that, and like there are, after all, other ways of avoiding pregnancy, and I mean, okay, these methods are not perfectly reliable. On the other hand, I mean, vasectomy isn't perfectly reliable. It can spontaneously reverse. So, it just started to seem like, all right, do I really want to take that risk? Yeah, maybe, maybe not. So, I like that was pretty much it. Oh, hello?
Oh, I know. I said it looked like you were doubting it again. Like you just kind of drifted off. Like, do I really want to take that risk?
Do I? No, I'm pretty like I do, yeah, I don't care. No, I've committed to this. It's gonna happen. I'm not. Oh, and actually, yeah. I mean, the other thing I have like a weird ball. So that
I didn't know you wanted to share that. I'm excited.
well, I do, yeah. I have a weird ball, and the weird ball, that kind of made me worry because I was like, oh well, maybe that would create a greater risk of these sorts of complications. As it happens, it doesn't. At least according to the doctor.
In one ball.
Well, actually, I don't know if it's like two vas deferens, but there's like a redundant like tube. Yeah.
Redundant tube would be a secondary vas deferens.
Right.
So,
Well,
or there, I mean, maybe it's a non-functioning vas deferens.
right,
At which
probably. I
point,
don't know if it's like, like there's going to be sperm traveling through both of the or anything like that. But yeah. So I have
philosophical.
sorry?
It's going to wax philosophical for a minute. Like, is it a vas deferens if it doesn't
Oh.
function as it doesn't convey sperm to its exit point? But, or is it just a tube? I don't know. But you'd enjoy that.
Yeah. Um
What I liked about our conversation, though, was, yeah, I could point out that this is just a way all human brains process and reason incorrectly when there's any kind of negative information going on, like balancing happening. But that wasn't really what moved you. What moved you was something that you and I share, which is this: my ideal self is not one where my body is constantly trying to make babies. My ideal act of coitus is not one where my body is like, use this to make babies. This is for making babies. There's something essential in me and how I conceive of myself that wants to be rid of that. Um, and I think it's something, I mean, that I've had a lot of people, especially men, get really upset with me for saying that. Like, it's this beautiful thing your body can do, and you don't want it to do it. I mean, our bodies do a lot of things that we would really like to avoid if we could. Like, if I could stop myself going gray, I would, right? Um, if I could stop myself aging, if I could stop my swelling reaction to allergens, right? If I could tone down my immune reaction to literally all the plants, I would do that too. We've all experienced our body doing something that is opposed to our interests. But with reproduction, we have this unique opportunity to take possession of our bodies in this really profound way and say, like, no, my relationships, my sex acts, my life will not be co opted by this body that keeps trying to do this thing that I don't want it to do. And I expressed how good it felt to live in a body that is truly for your own purposes, not merely for a biologic one or biological ones. I guess I should say if I'm going to pluralize it between the two of us. I don't know. Did that have as much of an impact on you as
Yeah,
I felt
yeah.
like it?
Yeah, it did. And I think, like, because, like I said, it's something which I have always. I mean, it sounds weird to say this about something like a vasectomy, but there's a sense in which I've always wanted to do it for myself. Like it's something I personally have just wanted for myself. The reason why that's weird saying it for something like a vasectomy is that really it's almost like a vasectomy is only relevant if you're involving other people. I mean, if there were no other human beings, why would it matter? But in some sense, I still would say, in a world with no other human beings, I just want to, I would still enjoy sabotaging the capacity for reproduction. Yeah.
It is body autonomy writ large, because our bodies really ultimately are just made to make more bodies. Like, biologically speaking, that's what this entire system is around for. And to completely subvert that and say, no, I'm around for my own purposes, not for merely reproductive ones, I think is, like, yeah, the greatest act of self ownership you can take.
I mean, in some
And it's
sense, look,
compelling.
there's plenty of people who engage in all sorts. I mean, there's all sorts of types of body modification. There's tattoos. There's other things that for some reason I'm not remembering.
I'm circumcision, although
Right.
most people don't cheer for that
Yeah.
one.
Um, yeah. Good.
Plans, cosmetic, all manner of
Right.
cosmetic. But additionally, like, I think what you and I are expressing is something that
But
might resonate with trans people a lot.
well, I just
Um,
wanted to say though. I mean, because maybe this helps to, I guess, express what is at least part of the motivation, not all of the motivation. But look, there's all these sorts of body modifications that are available to people, and I think that like most of those body modifications are concerned with just what is like observable. Like if you get a tattoo, then that's this observable piece of art, I guess, on the skin, and so it's like this observable aesthetic thing. And in some sense, I mean, like part of it is I want to remove the capacity for reproduction, and like I want to just know that that's gone. And I guess part of that might be like, I mean, it's not an aesthetic thing, but it's a kind of body modification that like my um, brings my sort of conception of like what like my self conception of what the perfect cane would be into line with what I actually have.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
aesthetic in the sense that it's based in values, your values for yourself, and the kind of entity you want to be. Um, yeah, I don't think that's in conflict at all. A lot of people who have tattoos will say they got them for themselves. We have matching tattoos. Did you get one
Right.
for me? I don't think so. Uh, I think I probably got mine for you, but that's just because I'm like a troublemaker. And I was like, oh, one more. It's not a big deal. I love it and we like it, but like that's adequate. It's still a kind of self-satisfaction, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so even though there is an outward element to it, there's just also this deeply satisfying thing to say, no, I've made myself into my ideal self, with no regard for what anyone else thinks. Um, so it just entirely, because this is the sort of entity I want to be, which I think actually, if you were ready, we did want to talk a little bit about what other people think
Oh,
of this.
yeah. I should say actually, I want to apologize for like cutting you off just as you're about to talk about trans people because it's occurred to me after we've just talked through that is exactly in line with the topic. So sorry.
Oh, yeah. I guess it seemed fairly obvious to me, but yeah. So what you and I are expressing, I'd imagine. Well, and I have several trans friends, and um, from listening to them, it seems as though what we're expressing is not significantly different, right? We know ourselves, and we know what we want our bodies to be, and sometimes they do not behave in the way we want them to.
Hmm.
And fortunately, we have modern medicine to help us out with that. And I mean, I know that even if like condom usage was perfect and perfectly protective, I would still want my body to be a sterile body. I would not feel at peace with my body until it was entirely mine, and not again like co-opted by biology, uh, and attempting at all times to fulfill those ends as opposed to my ends. I don't think that's different to what a lot of trans people report feeling. So maybe we have like body dysmorphic disorder. I don't think so. I think we know ourselves. We have our ideal concept of self, and it's different for different people. But our ideal selves are sterile.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's
Exactly.
going to be way more persuasive than like some condom statistics or
Well,
anything
I
like.
mean, it's I don't know. I mean, for me, it's still relevant, right? Like, I think if there were if condoms were perfect, um, I don't know, would I? That's still one of the things I'm weighing up, right? I mean, it's not like my desire for a sterile body is just like all consuming. You know, I am still going to be weighing the risks of the surgery. Like if the surgery was more risky, that might dissuade me. But then, I mean, how? So with the tubal ligation, actually, I mean, I've never asked you this, but what were the risks of that?
Oh,
Yeah.
it's like the second most serious abdominal surgery you can have.
Okay.
Um, that was reported to me by my surgeon,
Yeah.
because I asked him for an epidural instead of putting me under general anesthesia because there are significant risks with general anesthesia. And I'm not like grossed out by like my insides and whatnot. Like none of that bothers me. I'm not squeamish, and it seemed like all the relevant parts would be numb. So why not? Just give me a spinal. But he was reluctant to that, and part of the way he made that known was by expressing just how serious of a surgery this was to me. So if anybody wants to say, it's not that serious, it's like, well, take it up with Dr. Gatlin. Um, he's retired now. It's fine. Um, yeah. So, I mean, it can also reverse itself. Um, it can upset my menstrual cycle, obviously. They have to, because I've not had children before, my fallopian tubes are in a different location. They descend when you have carried a child to term, and like everything, it rearranges your organs to have a kid. Like,
Hmm.
we almost talked about this once before. Like, there are significant risks to like putting another human in you. Like, that's scary as well. But the risks were lower for me because I haven't carried to term. They just have to, locate the tubes. Um, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know how in depth you want me to get. Like, could they have nicked an artery? Absolutely. But I don't know if that's worth mentioning.
Yeah.
There's also problems with like fibrosis that can be increased. It's really, it's going to be the same slate of problems that are there for any serious abdominal surgery, if that makes sense. So, and then again, any of the problems that are there with general anesthesia being put under,
Yeah.
right? And again, those are extensive, but uh, none of nothing that was influential enough to me to cause any doubt whatsoever. Like if that was a surgery I didn't wake up from, then I'd have gone down really happy, which was something I had to reassure myself of.
Right. Okay.
It didn't really hurt either. Oh, yeah, maybe this is worth noting. Do you have a large lady viewership?
No.
Yeah.
No. I have a like 0.1% lady viewership as far as I'm can tell.
0.1%, and then the like small fraction of those who might be considering a tubal ligation. I'm allergic to opioids, like all of them. I can only take like ibuprofen. That's the only painkiller I can take because all the rest of them are opioids, other than the rest of the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. But yeah, like any prescription painkiller, essentially. You can try using gabapentin, but like that's used for treating seizures and can cause like all sorts of crazy problems. So yeah, there really aren't options outside of opioids. So I had the whole surgery without painkillers, and it was fine. I had sex 3 days later. I asked my surgeon if it was okay. I said, like, how soon after this can I have sex? And he was like, whenever you feel up to it. And I was like a couple days. He was like, yeah, I mean, we're gonna shift your uterus because we have to like move it to get to stuff, and that might cause some light bleeding, which it did. Um, but as soon as you feel up to it, you're good to go. It was kind of horrifying for my boyfriend at the time because they used surgical glue and they went in through my belly button, and my belly button was like this glassy glue blood eye of Starin horror thing, and he was a new boyfriend. He was a trooper about it. um, I kind of wanted to be like, look at it, but I did not. He turned out to be asexual later. Like, did I just horrify you? But yeah, no, it wasn't painful. Really, it was less painful than the dental deep cleaning I just got.
Right. So, I mean, all this stuff about how it was like a really serious surgery, and I mean, I don't know because I have to like wait about a week or something after mine before I'm allowed to even go for a run or whatever. I've got to rest for like a week.
So you're having the no scalpel method,
Right.
um, which I believe is an injection. So rather than cutting the vas deferens, I believe they like cork it up with a fluid substance that hardens and causes scarification. I could be wrong. Um, I don't have those parts, so I don't know as much about it. But I had a partner who had that method done, and in that case, you have to wait for it to settle and kind of like take root, right?
Mm.
But they're not scoping. I should have gotten these pictures out. I have pictures of my like innards that they took with the scope that they put in me to find my tubes.
Wow.
I have to take pictures. Yeah, and they were like, "No, we won't take pictures," but then they did, which was really nice of them. And again, I did have to go under general anesthesia, which vastly increases complications. Um, and yours will be done in office, whereas mine was done in a surgery center. Um, yeah. My anesthesiologist was Dr. Nick from The Simpsons. I swear to God. Like accent and everything. Nothing could have dissuaded me, like not even like that crazy level of sketchiness. I don't know if
Uh,
you get that reference at all.
yeah, I do. I've seen The Simpsons.
Okay.
I am like familiar enough with pop culture to be aware of Dr. Nick from The Simpsons.
I was wearing my contacts at the time, and I was like, oh no, I don't have like anywhere to take them out. I'm blind without them. And he goes, oh, that's okay. We tape them down. We just tape the eyes shut. Holy shit. Oh, I love this guy. I'm gonna trust my life in his hands. But yeah, really, I mean, like, I have a great distrust of the medical establishment. I think a healthy skepticism is maybe the way to put it. I have a healthy skepticism of most authorities. Um, and even with that, even taking that into account, there's simply no serious cause for concern.
Okay.
You
Well,
know yourself, not if you know you want this.
yeah. Well, I mean, look. Okay. I mean, I suppose that there are risks. I mean, there are risks associated with it, but
I yes, I added a modifier. All right.
yeah, no, okay, no. I mean, look, I don't know. I still think that life, like, chronic ball pain is that's a pretty major concern. It happens that
Balls
the,
locked off.
yeah,
They hurt forever.
sorry.
I was wondering if amputation would solve the problem. But I know we also wanted to talk about those social attitudes about it and like why you anticipated having trouble. Why
Yeah,
I had a receptive surgeons like on hand to give you, which BT dubs, I have links that I can give you to like put in your comments.
oh yeah, we'll
Like
do that. We'll, yeah.
put in your balls. Yeah, no, I have to like to the longitudinal failure rates of condoms, that New York Times article I linked you to.
Yeah, yeah.
To this list of physicians, which is global, for the record. So that might be helpful to people who are seeing this and saying like, oh look, to kind of normal people, like trying to normalize this choice to be child free. And these articles and uh, kind of blogs, I guess, about what monsters we are for choosing not to have children. Um,
Um, So yeah, you see, my actual experience here has been that nobody's really had a problem with it, and it was easy to get access to. And so, I mean, in a way, I'm actually disappointed because it would have been nice to have had a more interesting story to tell. But I suppose as far as like my the similarity of my values with the social values that I've encountered, it's a good thing. Yeah, and I haven't in my personal life had any issue whatsoever with the fact that I am going to get a vasectomy. So that's it.
so,
That's the story.
well, you said that your eyes were closed like the entire time. I personally,
Okay.
it was really funny. Sorry, I just wanted to take a moment to appreciate that. Um, well, I mean, yeah, you have certainly like encountered these attitudes just out there, though, like be it in news articles or, I mean, you're not really on social media, um,
Right. Yeah.
but I guess you're on some like old school PHP message boards.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
No.
So where have you? Why did you anticipate this struggle? Was it just me? Did I spook you?
No, it was a combination of well, partly you, but also partly because I had looked up getting a vasectomy, and it said online like that for I think it was like if a man is childless, if he's unmarried, if he's under 40, it can be quite difficult. Physicians can be unwilling to perform it.
Okay,
So
so yeah, you've encountered those attitudes, and I guess the thing we've been talking about more recently has had to do with the fact that the Western world uh, seems to be in line with where you and I are now. Lower fertility rates than ever before.
right.
Um, so, may I use the restroom? We can come back and talk about this.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I might as well do that as well. So I'm gonna
Take a
pause the
pause.
recording now. Okay, so we're back. Now, before we left that short break, we were talking a little bit about some of these negative social attitudes towards the decision to be child free, to sterilize oneself. Um, and so I guess we wanted to talk a little bit about these. And as I said, I mean, look, in my own personal life, I haven't actually really experienced much of this. I've had a very good time of it, but I'm aware of these sorts of attitudes.
When
Um,
you say that you haven't had it directed at you, that
yeah,
doesn't mean you haven't been like exposed to it as like the general zeitgeist.
yes. Okay, yeah, that's a sensible way to put it. So, yeah, I mean, to be honest, right? Like I find it hard to talk about about this because these sorts of attitudes just seem kind of so dumb. I mean, they seem so obviously dumb that it's what is there to, I mean, is like what is there to say in response to something so absurd? But you do get the sort of view that to be child free is in some way a selfish decision. There is perhaps the attitude that you owe it to the community, or maybe even just to members of your own family or something like that, to continue the genetic line. I mean, it has to be specifically I mean, if we're talking about sterilization, I suppose somebody could, in principle, adopt if they wanted to do that. But I think the attitude is more that no, like you actually should reproduce biologically. It's not. It's actually not just that you should have a kid. It's that you should have a kid via biological means if you can do so, and that there's something selfish about not doing so. I mean, I find that like absurd for many reasons. It seems pretty obvious to me that, well, for one thing, it seems pretty obvious to me that look, there's all sorts of contributions a person can make to the world. Why would they have to contribute via having a kid? And in any case, I mean, the way the world is going right now, we are coming very close to 8 billion. And in fact, by the time this video has been released, it will be possibly will be on 8 billion, or very very close to it. I think it's November the 15th is
Yes,
the
that's what I said with my arms up, but
right. Yeah.
not
November the
from
15th, 2022, we're going to pass 8 billion people. And I mean, look, human beings, the very large number of human beings, it's kind of fucking things up a bit. Um, you know, it's causing some problems. So, um, I mean, look, from that point of view, it strikes me that if anything, that it seems actually it might be a kind of selfless decision not to have kids. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to pretend that I'm having a vasectomy because I'm concerned about the state of the planet or anything like that. That is absolutely not the reason for me. That
I
didn't play any role whatsoever in my reasoning.
bonus for
Sorry,
I think.
I couldn't hear you. I was
Like for me at least, it's a bonus that I like get for free. Like yes, I am deeply concerned about the environment. I had made my decision not to have children long before any of the like contemporary environmental concerns existed, and it had nothing to do with the environment. But I get this there's this lovely bonus. Like it would be I think it'd be wrong to say like that's not a part of it. Like if this were detrimental to the environment, might you think twice about it?
no,
Oh,
absolutely
see,
not.
if it were serious, if it were as bad for the environment as it actually is good, um, then I think that would give me pause.
No way.
I would not, but instead we just get like this. I don't know. To me, it's like a lovely bonus where it's like,
Look,
oh, and it's good for
yeah.
the environment.
I mean,
Like,
I can agree with that. I mean, in the sense that it's a bonus, yeah. I like it's a nice thing that you can point to. Like I can point to it and be like, hey, it also. I mean, look. So to
like
be
electric vehicles.
yeah. So to
Like,
be child free. I mean, I feel like by not having kids, I'm making like much more of a contribution to protecting the environment than um, than somebody who has had children would be able to do with a whole bunch of other sacrifices. That was a really weird way of constructing that sentence. I hope that the
I think it was fine.
okay.
Yeah,
But
I
the point
had a
is that look, having a child. Okay, here's a better way to put it. Having a child, Um, and that will have significant, well, not exactly significant, but it will have negative environmental consequences, right? Like just bringing another person into the world, that has a negative impact on the environment. And so, I mean, look, I mean, that does matter. So that is a nice bonus that I can say I'm being environmentally friendly in this respect.
Well, I mean, it's a relief, I guess, for me. But I also don't see it as a huge act of sacrifice, right? Like,
Yeah.
so maybe that's why people see it as selfish. I've been personally confronted with this, like, I have great genes. I'm more healthy than I should be by any rights. And I've been more successful in conventional ways than most people from my socioeconomic status could ever hope to be. Uh, and people think it's selfish for me to choose to live my own life instead of giving them more uh, genetically fit humans. Like they feel like I owe them intelligent, healthy laborers. I don't know, like workers. I'm not sure. Meat. I'm not. I think there's not nothing to that objection that it's selfish. Because there's something fundamentally selfish about saying my greatest satisfaction will come from living my own life to my highest ideals, uh, as opposed to uh, imbuing somebody else with these virtues and contributing to some future state.
Mm.
Because it's looking after my own self satisfaction. Now, does that make it selfish? No.
Well, actually, I
Right?
mean, so what you've said there. I mean, it does occur to me that like maybe you could make an argument where you'd say, well, look, um, having like we need people in the population to have kids, right? People in the population that we need to reproduce
Well,
because
goal is to have
as
lots of.
the population ages, there has to be new people coming into the workforce to keep all the institutions running. Like I'm going to get older, and I'm going to my body's going to break down. Maybe I'm going to rely on the NHS or whatever. I may well be in a position where I rely on social institutions, and that's going to mean that younger people have to be running those institutions. And so it's maybe you could kind of say that like, all right, you should do your part. You should bring some new person into the workforce.
I
Um,
say I'm an educator. Fuck off.
right.
Um, um, which I think is a valuable contribution to that future state. It's we definitely don't want a future like you described without any educated individuals,
No.
and I think we definitely don't want one where all the existent people are preoccupied with taking care of their parents, right? So educating seems to be in the public interest, as it were, making the choice we've made. But when I say selfish, I mean it's self-concerned is what
Yeah.
it is. Um, we've taken a kind of ownership over our lives that I think most people don't take. Um, and we've decided to live a kind of life that we want to live. And that is self concerned. I don't know that that makes it selfish, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not at anyone's detriment. But it does require a great level of self awareness and introspection and the ability to, like, if your parents had wanted children or the random people who feel entitled to my, like, tall, skinny, smart genes. Like, I don't know. They for whatever reason, yeah, I am doing them a disservice, I guess. But it's not to the detriment of society on whole. That would be insane. Because frankly, I wouldn't be able to contribute in the ways that I can. So I don't know that it's a terrible argument if you stretch it out. So let's follow that logic. Let's say, okay, you do owe the world children, um, so that they can live their happy lives and carry on, and so that everybody else can. Well, vis-a-vis everyone else owes everyone children, and those children don't get to have their own lives because they owe the world more children, and ipso facto, no one gets to live the life they want to. They all end up subverting it for some future generation. So, I mean, I think
Everybody,
it,
well, I mean, I guess they say, look, everybody has to make sacrifices. Everybody has an obligation to, yes, you don't get to live the perfect life you want to. You have an obligation to make some sort of sacrifice. You can have a pretty good life, but it's not going to be ideal.
I mean, or, just physician assisted suicide when it comes time, which means I think both of us won't make. Maybe not you, you're still scared of death. Um, but yeah, I, I think these arguments only work in so much as that they assume that you want future states to be like the current state of affairs. So yes, if we want to keep what we have going exactly as it is, or similar to how it is, then yes, we do need more people. But that assumes that I want to keep things going as they are, which I don't. And I don't think anybody should want that. It will lead to the destruction of our planet, uh, for sure.
Mm.
But also, it means that nobody gets to live the life they want to live. And I don't think anyone should want that.
Yeah, okay. So, so,
It's a long line of deferred dreams.
right. um, so that was that's that. What were the other things? Right. So
Yeah,
there's the attitude that it's a selfish choice. Um,
we also talked about
there's
this like fear of an idiocracy world
Oh yeah. I
because
mean, I guess that's actually kind of an expression, or so that's just maybe another way of elaborating this same point. So um, maybe the obligation that
rises
people
from
like
different.
us specifically would have, like we specifically have an obligation to have kids because look, I mean, look, we are educated and we're part of the elite. And the problem is that the elite are not having kids, or at least the rate of them having kids is declining. It's
But it has been for a while,
yeah.
and it would be crazy to say that some measure of intellect isn't heritable. Um, Intelligence is going to be heritable to some degree, right? I think that's an uncontroversial statement. Uh,
Um, I don't. I mean, it's probably a little controversial, but
I said
we
to
can.
some
Yeah, okay.
degree, like
I think okay. So that here we can put this in a way which is, I think, completely uncontroversial, which is just to say every trait is going to be a product of some combination of genes and environment, and the same is going to be true for psychological traits, just as much as physical traits. So I don't think anyone should have any objections to that way of framing it.
so I've had it pointed out, and it's framed differently. So I think the subjection to just people deciding not to have kids, it comes from a statistical observation, which is the higher your degree of education, um, and the higher your socioeconomic status, the less likely you are to have children. Uh, and this is explored in the intro sequence to that film Idiocracy. Uh, and there's this idea that like the pores will like outbreed and we're both pores. Like if we're framing it that way, like I am
That's
not.
true.
But we're definitely more comfortable and we are highly educated. We're
Yeah, but
exactly.
actually, I mean, I'm not. I mean, I think it's probably a good thing that you haven't reproduced because I mean, you're comfortable now, but like actually, you were born in uh, a far worse situation. So I guess you're kind of exactly the sort of person that we wouldn't want reproducing. Like,
Yeah,
on
you have
this
two
theory.
siblings who both have graduate degrees from immigrant parents. Fuck those siblings. They should. Incidentally, my brother is child free as well. Just like, oops. Um, yeah, so I think this, like, we can call it like the idiocracy objection if you want. Um, the idea that the natively intelligent, uh, do in fact statistically have fewer children than the uneducated is it's true, and it is true that to some degree, uh, these traits are heritable. Um, that means that we're creating this idiocracy dystopic future by making our choice to either delay or not have children. Um, I think that's crazy.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if you wanted to add to that objection.
No, that's my understanding of it as well. So that's yeah. I think that's what it is.
I mean, so the best articulation I've heard of this came from a woman many years ago, who had exactly one child and is delightfully liberal in all the expected ways, far more so than me. And she said, think about what you could give to a child, uh, and think about how much better off that child would be being born to you than to someone else. So it wasn't just about the genetic contribution, but the educational upbringing, um, skills and abilities that any offspring of mine would develop. And I mean, again, we wanted to give these things a fair shake. We didn't want to give them their worst articulation. And I said to her what I said about the previous objection is that's just a long line of deferred dreams. Think about what I could give to myself. Think about the life I could lead.
Yeah.
uh, yeah, because she was like, "You'd make a magnificent human," and if I were so inclined, I have no doubt that I would. That's
Well,
accurate.
I mean that's a pretty important qualification though, because I mean, so I'm not so inclined, and actually I think that I would make like I would be a terrible father. Like in fact, I'm pretty sure if I had a kid, I would immediately walk away and do everything I could to have nothing to do with the kid.
Do
So
you
this,
know about failure to thrive?
oh,
Babies will like die if you don't love and touch them, like 100%, because I am not so inclined. Like I could go through the physiological thing, and whatever I produced would just like die from lack of parental interest.
right.
Like I just feel like that's a thing. Like I can barely water my plants, but also I don't want. I can eat my plants. Like I have an herb garden, so they're interesting to me, and I have an interest in sustaining them, because we are not so inclined.
Hmm.
None of those things are realistic outcomes of us
Right.
reproducing.
It would require, I mean, so of course, the sacrifice would be not simply having a kid, it would be everything that comes, that's part of raising a kid. And an enormous commitment. I mean, that requires a great deal of money, for one thing. It's very expensive. It requires a huge chunk of your time. I wouldn't be able to just do stuff that I want to do. Like I wouldn't be able to say, "Hey, I'm going to go on a holiday to this place this year." I would be in. If I was trying to work on something, I would be interrupted, having to take care of this kid. I mean, it would be horrible. I don't want to have that responsibility over another person. I don't. I mean, and I just wouldn't. Like I would refuse. I would do everything I could to avoid contributing. That's what
We
would
would,
actually happen.
despite like our wonderful qualities, we would be terrible parents. So even like under that, I call it a charitable interpretation of this, like you have qualities that I think should be iterated in the next generation, sort of objection. It's still no, we don't have those qualities because we don't want children.
Mm.
I think maybe that comes from a place where our choice is just foreign to most people. It's just so alien that they can't understand that we don't have parental instincts, and that nature taking its course for either you or I would be just an abandoned infant.
Well, I suppose it depends on. I mean, so certainly for me, I mean, like again, I guess if I got somebody else pregnant, then who knows what this hypothetical woman, how much effort she would put into it. But no, I would certainly try my best to abandon it. Yeah. Um, and that sort of environment is not the kind of environment that would be best, that would be the sort of best place to raise somebody who is going to have um, all of these important skills and who is going to be stable and go on to make a good contribution to society. Um, yeah.
It's also to me, at least when this woman articulated this concern to me, uh, I remember she was like, "You could." I played cello at the time, pretty well, and she was like, "Oh, you could make an
I
amazing."
didn't know you ever played cello. You never mentioned that.
Yeah, I played a few instruments. What do you want? And she was like, "Oh, but imagine like if you would learn that
Yeah, but
from
cello
infant."
though. I mean, cello seems like something you should have mentioned.
I
It's
wanted
not
to
like
stand up.
guitar.
They wouldn't let me because I was teensy at the time. I was a kid. They're like, "You can't slap the bass. You can't play stand up bass." And boom, boom, boom. So they gave me a cello, which I tried to play as a bass, and that just didn't work. And I never really liked it, but I don't know. It was a hobby. I don't mention all my hobbies to you. Um, there are other ones as well. Anyway, I'm an abundant. I do shit cane. Um, but she was like, imagine you if you train this child like from childhood, it could become an amazing cellist. And I was like, bitch, I could be an amazing cellist. Like, again, it's just ultimately like taking whatever the best qualities you have are, and keeping that expectation and burden on your offspring, which to me is just profoundly selfish, and lazy. It's lazy. It's like I'm going to engage in this biological reproductive act instead of actually chasing down my own dreams. And then I'm going to expect my child to chase down my dreams, which of course they'll never do. I dated a guy with a daughter once, and he was into punk rock. And she turned like 9 while we were together. And he got her some CDs. This was back in the fucking day. Um, he got her some CDs, and they were like punk CDs. And she like confided in me at one point. She was like, "Why did he buy me these? I don't want this." And it's because he needed a mini me. He needed to make this thing that could do the things that he had wanted to do but had given up for the sake of making this thing. And again, it's just a long line
I
of dreams.
I remember talking to a guy about why he wanted to have kids, and he actually said he said something like, I mean, I'm not going to get it exactly right, but he said something like, "Well, it would be just great to have like a little version of myself that could do the things that I wasn't able to do. Like, wouldn't that be so amazing?" I'm like,
No,
do you not have like any idea what it's like actually like to have a? I mean, look, I don't even care about having kids, but I know enough about children to know that there's no way that's going to happen, right? It's not going to be a mini version of you. They're going to go and do their own thing.
I was going to say it's because we both were hugely disappointing or confusing to our parents. So we know that, like, there's a chance that this entity has its own personality, and desires and dreams and hopes. And you can't just manipulate them because we chose that, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And I guess these people can't conceive of that, which is sad because the woman who confronted me that way was an artist. I just realized. Wow. There's an irony there. So I don't know. I feel like that's also just an objection that even if we interpret like super charitably, doesn't stand
Yeah,
up to any kind of either like serious long term application or scrutiny even in the short term.
right. Um, yeah, okay. So, well, so what else is there then? I mean, is
So
are there any other relevant objections here?
so there is one that I said I wanted to keep for myself because it
Right.
has been directed at me specifically.
Okay.
Um, and it's probably the most the objection itself isn't philosophical, but it's bound up in some philosophic concepts, which maybe actually you're more prepared to talk about now.
I didn't do
Um,
any preparation for this particular discussion, actually. I
Sartre and Camus
Oh, right.
now.
Yeah.
Um, Meaning. Let's talk about meaning, and not like Frege's meaning or like Russell's meaning, but like those French existentialists, right? Or absurdists.
If somebody can come up with like some sort of objection to being child free that rests on Frege's account of meaning, then you'll get a prize. You won't actually get a prize, but like, I'd like to see it.
I, I don't know. Maybe you can send them some of your like untainted DNA, like before you
Right.
like just put it in the freezer. That's
Yes.
gross.
Have
Do
some
that.
of
Don't
my sperm and produce a mini cane. Uh,
I'm reminded of TV show Community, which you should watch now that you have Netflix. Anyway, um, somebody gives sperm in their last will and testament. Anyway, so if you, I see this a lot, and I think people will immediately recognize it in their own lives when they hear me start to talk about it, and you'll recognize instances of this. It is very distressing to people when you do not find meaning in the same activities that they find meaning in, right?
mm.
Like, I think this is why people find it so offensive if you're an atheist. Like, even if you never bother anyone about it, like,
Yeah, do you
just
think this is also? I mean, this hadn't really occurred to me before, but I actually wonder if this it might be one of the motivations behind things like moral realism. Like the idea is supposed to be like there really are these independent values out there, and so we can say like if this person doesn't share the same sort of value system as me, then they are incorrect. And I wonder if maybe that could be motivated by a similar sort of thing. Um,
like certainly if you were to take issue with you or I, who like really we behave essentially like normally and are like good people by their accounts of it. It certainly explains why people get so upset, like even over like sports ball things. Like if I call them sports ball to my class, like the whole genre that is sports ball, um, like competitive sports. Occasionally I'll watch the Olympics because like there's one where people like ski and then like shoot guns and like it's just impressive, like
okay,
just
yeah,
physically impressive. But beyond that, I could care less about any of the competitive sports ball things. And people find that insulting. And I can't explain it. I'm not gonna stop them enjoying sports ball, but they are less able to enjoy it because I'm not valuing the thing that they value. I'm not finding meaningful the activities that they find meaningful. It has been a point of tension between my husband and I, right? Like he is athletic in a competitive sense, and he'll want to like good for you, and I'm just like I don't so you were better than someone else who happened to be there at the time, and it deflates him. Like I'm happy he's healthy, and I'm happy. I will say like I gotta look at him. um, I'll say like I'm happy that you're happy, and I'm happy for you, but like I don't value that activity in the same way you do. And winning like just isn't valuable to me. I think likewise people do make a great personal sacrifice to have children, um, namely their leisure time and a huge chunk of their finances, and like spontaneity in life in general. Those are things that everybody enjoys that these people no longer get to enjoy. Now, granted, they made that trade believing it would be a worthwhile trade. So it's not, I don't know if sacrifice is the right word for it, but they value this thing. They value being parents. They think they're doing something meaningful, and they think it's important. And when you and I wholesale reject that and say, like, no, I don't need that to be happy, I'm just going to have some delicious goza. They don't sell this in my state. I have to pick it up from another state, which I definitely couldn't do if I had children. Anyway, um, I'm valuing other things. I'm over here just valuing my other shit. And yes, I'm kind of loud about it because you guys like to tell me I shouldn't be able to. And it took me 10 years and $23,000 to be able to, just not have kids, which I paid for out of pocket in case. I just have to say that because whatever, people get fussy about it. My government dollars shouldn't pay for your alcoholism. Like, no, I paid for it. Don't worry about it. It's a personal affront, right? In the same way that me not valuing Jesus or whatever, or as you said, objective morality, which I mean, there are practical reasons for that as well, but people are upset when we don't find meaning in these activities. And I mean, I think that's pretty apparently like just myopic and wrongheaded.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also just kind of built into us. If somebody was like, you're a philosopher, that's so stupid. I don't value that at all. I mean, I might try to make sure they knew that philosophy was not psychology.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, I don't know, would you feel slighted by that?
What, by people not caring about philosophy?
Or something else that you value highly?
No, that doesn't bother me. Doesn't bother me one bit.
Really bother me either,
But then,
but
I mean, I have a great deal of experience with this because I am from a family who are all completely different from me. Like I was very much the odd one out. So the things that I'm interested in and that I value and the kind of the things that I count as like success in life are all just completely different from the what my dad or my brother or my mum or whatever would care about.
I have the same inclination. I'm trying to be like kind of fair to these people who have this feeling. If somebody said like you're wasting your life with this, or I think it's silly to care about these issues. I don't know that I would particularly care, but I can see why somebody might say like, no, these things are valuable. It is valuable to engage with these issues
Yeah.
and want to
I just want
establish.
to. I suppose I should just clarify though. I mean, just to be clear, my claim is not that anybody is wasting their life by having kids, or that it's silly to have kids. I mean, I'm not coming at this from a sort of anti-natalist point of view. So, you know, I mean, there may be some people who make that claim, of course, but
So yeah, maybe
that's
I
not
would
like
admit it.
built into being child free. You can be child free just for your own personal reasons. It doesn't have to
I
be
don't have
about.
the list, but I'm pretty close.
Hmm.
Um, but that being said, I don't want to sort myself with those fuckers. So I just worried about swearing on YouTube. You can tell I've been teaching recently because I'm like, oh, I gotta self censor. All the same, and I was giving you an extreme version of it. So if somebody said, I don't care at all about the things that you value most, I wouldn't find that personally upsetting, but I can understand why somebody would. And our choice to not have children reads as this sort of the thing that your most meaningful contribution to society is utterly meaningless to me. That's,
Okay.
because for a lot of people, that is their greatest contribution.
No, actually, what you've said there is that is true, and I would say that. I don't have a problem with other people having kids, but it is utterly meaningless to me. I do
I
not
used
care. And what's
instead
more,
of
I don't care. I have no interest in your kids. I don't want to see them. I don't want to look at photographs of them. I'm just not interested. And I would tell people that. Not that anybody has ever tried to show me their kids, but if somebody was like, look at this photo of my daughter, newborn daughter, I'd just be like, yeah, whatever. It's a baby.
I
Like they all look the
totally
same.
I totally sent you a video of me dancing to Modern Love with my friend's 3-year-old, and I know you watched it and thought it was cute. So I'm just saying, you're not that hard ass.
I remember that, and I think I may have responded positively, um, but there's a difference
I'm
between.
in a Pikachu costume. No, I have an interest like
Okay,
once
okay,
they
right. No, I'm going to be like quite honest here. I don't give a shit about seeing your friend's daughter dancing. I just didn't care about that. And
oh fair enough. It was the
I mean, look, I like to see stuff that you're up to, and but it was a video that you were in the video as well. You were dancing with her, so that made it a bit different. Um,
the reason I bring this up is because there's a point at which like I think both of us would have an interest in these human beings as their own entities, but at that point the parent who made the choice, who feels like they've done a meaningful thing, is of no consequence. That's not where we're deriving meaning from these
Oh right,
interactions.
yeah. Well, obviously, I may well have some sort of interest in specific individuals who might be children, right? They're yeah,
You're
for
just being
various
very
reasons.
hard. So yeah, but all the same, I think really it comes down to we're not valuing the same thing that they're valuing, and that is very distressing to people. We're looking at it, and the same goes for religion or moral realism. We're looking at that, and we're saying, "Oh no, this is utterly meaningless to me." And I think that's distressing to people, which it shouldn't be, but people get upset about differing values. That's probably most of what people get upset about.
Yeah.
Like in life, like you value things differently to me. Fuck you, which is, I mean, hilarious, but also like really bad. um, we're I mean, we've got to have some part of this ourselves because otherwise we wouldn't have sat down and wanted to make this video. But for the fact that we recognize that there are other people out there like us, and we value open discourse, and we think it would be good, maybe not morally good, but it would be good if this choice were normalized. Um,
Right.
and if somebody commented like, this means nothing to me. Yeah, it wouldn't affect us, but their goal is to say what you did is devoid of meaning.
Okay. Yeah, I'm okay with that though. I don't have any desire to create meaning. Um,
Yeah, I mean, no, that's why I said maybe Sartre and the Camus will help you out
yeah.
here because it has to be about your own meaning creation. It really has to be. It can't be couched in other people
Well,
valuing what
look,
you value.
I mean, look, the way I would put it is this. Okay, if somebody said, "Why are you doing this particular video?" I think the main reason why I'm doing it is just um, I would like to live in a world where the choice to become sterile is, like you say, normalized. And I think one way of helping to make it become normalized is to have people, you know, just people like us just visibly doing it. And I mean, look, there are other reasons as well. I like to keep my YouTube channel running. I want to have content. I mean, that's it. It's this is going to get some clicks. That's what.
You know, the queen of body autonomy.
Yeah, and the Queen of Body. Yeah, with the Queen of Body autonomy. And I, and so. So to frame it as so, if somebody was to respond by saying, "Look, what you're doing is meaningless. It's of no value." I mean, okay, well, like okay, like so what? I mean, like what? I just think. I mean,
I couldn't
you
put
can
on that.
disagree.
There are no objective values.
Well,
Obviously,
you
it's
can.
not valid to you.
I mean, you can hold that like the choice to become sterile shouldn't be normalized, but then we obviously just have a a disagreement about our values there. You can say that doing this video is not going to help me achieve that value, um, but I don't. But if that's the case, that's fine because I'm enjoying it. I'm just enjoying this conversation right now just for its own sake. So, like whatever, it
If
might
there,
help, it might not.
no, if there's any such thing as meaning, it's meaning we create for ourselves. Well, and that's what I was saying. Maybe the French existentialism you've been engaging with recently will help you because
Why do you
I
make
think
it
that,
sound like I'd be? I haven't been engaged. People are going to be expecting me to make videos about these people, though I haven't been engaging with French existentialists recently.
I mean, like, that's some like base. Do you like that? I love that I just magically got another beer. Um, um, you read a Wikipedia page. I don't know. It's super helpful for these sorts of conversations. I think this recognition that like I don't know, people want philosophers to engage with this idea of meaning all the time, and we're anti-realists, and I don't know what your sentiments on meaning is, but I'd imagine it resides somewhere in this area, and it's useful for this discussion. So fine, Kane knows nothing about French existentialism. He's wholly ignorant of who these people are.
Pretty much, yeah. Um, you know, I mean, look, I personally don't really frame anything I do in terms of meaning. Like that's, if I'm being honest. So, you know, I just, I don't know what more to say. Like,
Oh, fine, you've just stolen my thunder. Either way, I think that that final objection is essentially just somebody. It's just a normal human insecurity, where people feel judged because we're valuing things differently to how they are. And I think, well, that's certainly normal. It can't be the basis of our moral decisions. I think as soon as you look at what's happening there, we can treat it with some measure of sympathy, um, which is to say this is a normal human reaction to be distressed that people value things differently to you. Um, but that doesn't make it, uh, I don't want to say right. I want to say it doesn't make it reasonable. It might be normal or normative, but that doesn't make it reasonable to be cross with people because they don't value what you value. You value it, like if somebody makes the choice to have children, I want them to do it finding enough of their own value in it, in the same way that you and I find enough value in our own lives that we don't want to have children. That has to be the place where this decision is made from. It can't be on the basis of other people validating it or finding it valuable or applauding it. That's all I was trying to bring us round to.
okay.
I'm sorry. I mean, same with religion or anything else, but I suppose that's a big one. So uh, maybe we should have saved it for last because we also have this new one that we've got some articles on. Did you want to
Okay.
talk about that?
Um, uh, what is this new one? Wait a minute. New what? What does one refer to there?
An objection to us not having kids. I sent you an article from the Telegraph. Is the Telegraph a reputable? I'm sorry.
I actually don't really. I mean, so my understanding of British papers, and I could be completely wrong about this, is that the Telegraph is pretty right wing. I think that it's seen as being slightly of it. So you have like say the Daily Mail and the Daily Express, which are the kind of like dumbass right wing papers, and then you've got the Telegraph, which I think is considered to be a bit more sophisticated. Man, I sound like a real aristocrat shithead the way I'm framing all this, don't I? But I'm just look, I'm just giving. I'm the messenger here. But yeah, I mean it's definitely on the right. People call it the
So I
Tory graph.
think like the Daily Mail in a political on a political side of things, I thought it was just pure tabloid. Um, which is to say sensationalism, regardless of the irrespective of any political agenda.
Um, I mean, the Daily Mail, I think most people would say, has a very clear political agenda. Um,
Okay,
yeah.
well, maybe what I come across is just like pure garbage. The last thing I read
I mean,
from them was about.
it is a tabloid. It is, yeah, like it's sensationalist. It's a tabloid, but it's like it's yeah, like they're very much like pro-conservative. Uh, the
Okay, because
Conservative
we have
Party, that is.
tabloids that are just like there are babies living on the sunken Titanic,
Yeah, we
which
have
we
that kind of thing as
would
well.
all call like apolitical. Like, that doesn't have an agenda that's political. Their agenda is just to sell papers. So I assumed the Daily Mail was like a slightly more based in reality version of that. Um,
No, I think it's
anyway,
probably more like it's more like a sort of Fox News type thing that's maybe engages in with some of these
kind
sort
of
of silly articles. Yeah.
he's living on the Titanic.
Sorry.
Just to be clear, Fox News has gotten to the point where it's kind of verging on like pure tabloid. There
Right.
are babies living on the Titanic. That's
Um,
just that was an Inquirer article cover that was at grocery store checkout line when I was a grocery store checkout girl when I was 15 years old in Tennessee. And I'll never forget it. They had photoshopped like little baby faces up to the portholes. So it forever remains my example of a tabloid news article. Anyway, um, but it's while it may have bias, they don't wholesale make shit up, right? And it was the article I happened to link to you because I read it the day before yesterday, right? Like,
hmm,
well, no, I think I read it yesterday, the day I linked it to you. It articulated this sort of economic problem that Western countries are facing because, and I'm sure people have heard this before, um, capitalist economies or mixed economies require year over year growth. Um, and certainly the American economy requires growth. Uh, if things were to stagnate, we'd have to change our economic system to some degree, or a political system, or both. And I don't want to get too into that. If you Google like why the fuck does capitalism require growth, you can find the reasons for it. But the Western world has had a fertility crisis, as they call it, uh, because well, the Western world is comprised more and more of people like ourselves who are in that demographic of people who have few or no children, um, which is, say, comfortable financially and educated people. Um, and there's this sort of we need babies uh, belief. I don't know what to call it, headline. And that article just typifies it. It was also convenient because I read it yesterday.
right. Yeah. Um, okay.
I don't know if you wanted
So,
to
um,
elucidate on it, talk about how your country experiences it or anything like that.
how does my country experience that? Um,
I don't. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's different for y'all than it is for us.
I don't know. I actually don't know. I don't know how my country experience. I
Like
don't know what the fertility rates are in the UK.
a bit lower than they are here, I
Right.
believe.
Okay. Well. Um. Yeah.
I mean, it's
So.
not inaccurate. It's not. That's not factually wrong.
Right.
That we have an aging population that's retiring, and that economically, we require new people entering the workforce as old people exit the workforce.
Yes.
So that does pose a problem. It does mean we're kind of being selfish, right?
Um. Yeah, sorry. I thought I meant like, didn't we talk about this earlier? Or was this is this like a slightly subtly different point that I'm kind of missing?
Democracy stuff. You and I have talked about this, but we hadn't talked about it in this video.
Okay, I seem to recall. Okay, fine. Um, so I just really recall like using this example of there being an aging population and needing to bring people into existence in order to support the aging population. Like I have a very clear memory of having this conversation earlier. Um,
We briefly mentioned it in the context of like requiring new laborers,
oh,
but
oh dear,
I,
it seems the wheels have come off this video.
I think you worry too much. We're delightful. What are you worried about?
Okay.
Um, People pay us for this. I mean, like it's my job. No, I mean, we didn't address the fact that this is a fact of our economic
Right,
systems. That
okay.
this is
So, like, okay, it is. So the following points are true. We have an aging population. We have public services that are under increasing pressure. Although, I mean, there's some debate about how much the pressure on public services is due to the aging population versus how much of it is due to mismanagement on part of the government. I mean, that. But, I mean, certainly having an aging population doesn't help. And then you also have declining birth rates. I mean, I know that I don't know, but I have a strong suspicion that part of the reason why, so like the EU, for example, is so apparently like pro immigration and trying to get so many people in, even in the face of like it, increasing concerns about what that might mean for the effect on the culture and all of that stuff. Um, and even though it's increasingly unpopular. I mean, like, immigration is obvious. I suppose it's always been a pretty uh, controversial issue, but that it's not exactly popular for politicians to come out in favor of immigration and like increasing immigration. But even so, countries in the EU are bringing in increasing amounts of immigrants, and I suspect part of the reason for that is because they have an aging population, they have a welfare state, they need people they need more people to be helping to run those public services. So yes,
well,
that's the problem.
you move to the solution in there, which
Right.
the problem that is highlighted by this objection is that it is true that these insular economies require growth, and that the native participants in these economies are not contributing at replacement levels. Even we're sub replacement. America's been sub replacement for like 3 decades now. It might be two. Either way, for a hot minute, we've been below replacement levels. I don't know about the UK, and I certainly don't know about the EU. Um,
I'm pretty sure
but
Germany. I might be wrong about this. I think Germany has. I think Germany is. I could be wrong, but I have a recollection of reading that they have very low birth rate among the native population.
But Germany seems to have found one of the solutions, which is immigration. It's not actually needing more babies. More babies are lousy for, I don't want to say they're lousy for an economy, they're lousy for individuals, economically speaking, if those people are economically distressed. Um, Unless like they're using them for like child labor, in which case that's a whole different system entirely. But for me,
I
for
mean, if I was
example,
able to just enslave my children and sort of force them to work for me, then I would be much more open to having kids. Like if I could just be completely lazy and like force my slaves to do all the work for me, then I might be a bit more. Uh, maybe I'd reconsider the vasectomy. Um,
I mean, I shouldn't say this in your video, but if I were a man, I would have so many illegitimate children. Like, I'd have fucking babies all over the world, and I'd just abandon the shit out of them. So there are conditions under which we reproduce, just horrible, totally unrealistic conditions. I was at work in a place where I'd worked for 5 years. I was a tutor and part-time instructor, and I was in an office pool where everyone was. And I casually remarked that if I could, I would have so many like illegitimate children that I didn't know about and just like abandoned in random countries. And this woman who I had worked with, she had been there for about 3 years. Um, I worked there like as a part-time instructor. Um, but I was there a lot. Like I knew this woman. I was helping her study for her law school entrance exams, her LSATs, and we'd actually double dated once, weirdly. But anyway, I was like, I would have so many illegitimate children. Like if that were an option, if I were a guy, I would totally have that. And she was like, "Well, how do you know you don't?" And I was like, "Girl, what do you mean?" And she was like, "Well, no, like you travel all over the place and like, not slut shaming, but like you sleep with a lot of people and then like you just leave. So like, how do you know you don't just have all these illegitimate children all over the place?" And I was like, "No, but look at me and consider what you're saying." It took her 10 to 15 minutes to realize that I was a woman. And in fact, the whole office was like, "No, Jordan's got a point." I should have said her name, but it doesn't matter. Um, Jordan's got a point. You do just hook up all over the, and I'm like, "You understand that like I have the parts I have," and they're like, "Yeah, and you a hoe." I was like, "No, no, yes, that, but you're not seeing the forest for the trees, y'all. Like, come on, let's slow this down." And that may be one of the proudest moments in my life, where my coworkers, who I'd known for years, completely considered me without reference to like gender or reproductive capacities. Anyway, it's one of my favorite stories. And then somebody was like, "Wait a minute, you'd have to be the pregnant one." And I was like, "Yeah, motherfuckers." And they're like, "How did we miss that?" I can't just have abandoned children. So yeah, if I were you, I wouldn't get a vasectomy. I'd just be a terrible human being.
Okay, the problem is it comes with financial costs. So,
No, that's just in other countries
all
like
right,
never
okay,
number.
that's the
Just
plan,
hook
is
up.
it?
So, yeah, you love them and leave them, Kane.
All right.
Don't do that.
No,
It's the terrible
I'm actually surprisingly, I'm actually like a very nice person. I know that this is not necessarily the image I
like
project.
stressingly nice.
I know.
Like you take other people's like concerns and needs and interests in mind to an outrageous degree. Like the comfort of others is your primary concern. You're like worried about like the waiter's comfort, and I am too, but yours is like very high up there on your priority list. Like, are we asking for too many drinks? No, that's his job. Like he's happy. We'll tip him well. Anyway,
Okay, well, hello again, YouTube. So, unfortunately, the previous video that we recorded was corrupted at the end, and so um, we weren't able to upload the whole thing. That we talked for about an hour and a half, and like the last 10 or 20 minutes is no longer in existence. So, yeah, we're screw it. I there's
we
enough
were going to
there.
re-record it,
Yeah, but
but
I'm.
that felt awful.
Um, so it's time to announce whether or not I actually went ahead and got the vasectomy.
I
And
feel like
what?
I feel like people could probably just look at you and tell.
My balls feel like a pair of maracas. No, actually, they don't. Funnily enough, my balls feel perfectly fine. Although I did get the vasectomy, but they feel fine. And yeah, so that's
I
the
told you it wouldn't hurt.
well.
I told you it wouldn't hurt. Like I was like, "You're gonna be fine. You're not even gonna feel anything. Why do you think vas deferens have nerves in them?" And you're all anxious about it.
Well,
And
okay,
then
let's just be clear. I mean, I did feel something. There was some. So actually, for the first sort of 2 or 3 days after the procedure, there really wasn't any pain at all. Surprisingly, there wasn't really even any discomfort. Uh, and so I just sort of laid in bed and rested. And then I would say, yeah, after sort of 3 days, I did get some pain. Not anything like bad
It
at
was
all.
tenderness.
Yeah, I mean, it was more tenderness than pain. Um,
Yeah, that's what I think. If we were to go through our WhatsApp chat, you would see me saying like they'll probably just be a little tender at some point, and eventually we're like they're tender today.
yeah, and then they did get bruised and they sort of got a bit swollen, and that seems to have
Did
gone
you
down
take
now,
pictures?
though. Sorry.
Did you take pictures of your
Um,
horror balls?
well, I'm not uploading that to YouTube, so
I wasn't asking you that. You took the question. I was just curious whether or not you
yeah,
photographed
yeah,
your
yeah, of
horrified balls.
course.
Yeah, you have to. I have my pictures of my tubal ligation.
That's interesting. What does it look like? What the tubal ligation like? Because they go in
Oh,
abdominally, don't they?
yeah. So it was a laparoscopic procedure for me. And they need a camera to navigate through your guts. So they took screenshots of the inside of me and of my tubes with the laparoscopic camera. And I had requested them, so they printed them out for me. They told me they weren't going to do it, but then they did. It was really nice. I'm looking for it. But the actual, I mean, I could show you the scar if you wanted to see. I have that privilege. You can't be like, look. um, but and then they went in through my belly button, and the scar is maybe like the length of my pinky nail. Um, Maybe a little bit longer. I don't think so. No, it's about that length. And that's it. They didn't even need two incisions. Um,
Oh, okay, cool.
I can explain that further, but I don't want to offend anyone.
Why would that offend?
If you're slim and in good shape, um, laparoscopic procedures are much easier, and they only need the one incision. Um, so it's pretty uncommon that it's just one incision, but that's why it was such a mild procedure.
Okay, it
Um,
just depends on the body type. All right,
yeah, yeah. Well, and whether or not you've had kids, that your tubes move if you've carried a child to term.
right.
Uh, my tubes are high. I have perky tubes. Um, they drop down if you've carried a child to term. So a number of factors. My surgeon told me I was anatomical. So like afterward, he was very excited. He was like, "That was just like an anatomy textbook. Like that was amazing." Because of
Which
course
is,
he's used to
I mean, which
seeing
is
people
weird
who,
given the fact that you had a car crash that like completely tore up all your insides, right? I mean,
yeah.
uh,
So I was worried about that because I have a huge scar that runs the length of my abdomen, and scar tissue can adhere to organ tissue and whatnot. But apparently also, just maintaining a healthy weight and being active reduces the likelihood of that to like zero. So my, I don't want to be offensive with this, but like, just yeah, it's much more mild as far as I can tell. All surgeries are more mild if you maintain a healthy weight, and don't fuck your body up by having kids if you're a lady. Like it fucks your whole system up, your life support system.
well, no need to. So, you see, with me, kids are no longer a worry. That has
How
been,
good does
well,
that feel?
I mean, there is obviously a risk of the vasectomy reversing spontaneously. And actually, I think the fact that I'm young and healthy means that I'm probably at a higher risk. I imagine my body is probably more likely to repair itself. But
Do you know what type of what method they did, because in
Well,
women they can like put a blockage in your tubes,
yeah, yeah,
they
yeah.
can cauterize it, they can put steel clamps, or not steel clamps, they can put metal clamps on it, or they can actually take a section out.
Yeah, that's what they did with me. So the
I
method that
don't
was
think that
used
can
is
really reverse itself, can it?
it still
They
can.
just like find each other.
Yeah. So first, it can still reverse itself, but it is less like. So there are, like you said, there are different methods. If you what they did is actually like cut the tubes, take a section out, and then tie them up again, and that is less likely to reverse itself than like I think you can, like you say, put a blockage in there. So I mean, I don't know. It's not very likely. It's pretty uncommon that that's going to happen. I really hope it doesn't happen because I don't really want to. I mean, I've done it once, and like I feel like I've gotten lucky because I didn't get any kind of infection. I didn't get any kind of pain. I mean, I got a little bit of pain, as I said, but not much. But it was very, very, very easy, and I don't really want to have any more surgery on my balls.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and also the way you would find out that it hadn't worked would be um uncomfortable as well.
Well, no, it would be I would give a sperm sample to the a play because I got to send off a sperm sample like
That's
in
the initial
well, yeah, but
follow
that's
up.
like that's in like 3 months, so
Yeah, but if it were to reverse itself in like 10 years,
that's
the
really
way you would
unlikely
find
though.
out
I'm not
would
worried
be,
about that. That if you're
oh,
worried
is
about
that
that, you might as well be worried about dying in a car crash or something. Um,
really?
yeah, like that's like reversal after years. I think is on the order of like one in thousands. It's not.
As far as I know, for the tubal ligation, it's the opposite. Reversal after years is far more likely.
Oh no, definitely not with vasectomy. No, it get like the longer you wait, because you can have obviously vasectomy reversals intentionally, but I mean, the longer you wait, the far less likely it is that a reversal will be successful, even if you're intending to
Really?
reverse it.
Wow, I did not know that.
Mm.
I wonder. Now I'm gonna have to look into that because this has been, well, this was something you and I kind of talked about, and maybe we should mention it for your people. Um, this like exuberance at like being sterile,
Yeah.
and just the you mentioned it, and I'm shocked that I'd forgotten it because I lived my whole life with it. Just this sex is uh, kind of psychologically tied up to this threat, this possible horrifying outcome, uh, so that you're never just really free to enjoy it.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. In many
and
ways,
then
it's a shame. It's a shame, really, that we didn't record this the day after I got it done because I actually now can remember how I felt, and it was like I just remember feeling like, oh my God, this it's done now, and now there's this whole like weight that has always been on my mind. It feels like every time you have sex, there's like a gun pointed at your head that might go off, right? And now that's gone. I mean, I suppose there are other types of guns out there. There's always the risk of disease, for instance, but eh, like the thing that really scared me was pregnancy. So, like, yeah.
your casual dismissal of disease was, I'm sorry, I don't know why that's what got me, but I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, it's that connection between the threat, the gun, as you put it, and this act that like humans are designed to enjoy. Uh, it's just gone, and it's so liberating. I really enjoyed you telling me about that because it reminded me of how I felt after I finally had my tubes tied. But it took like weeks for it to fade for me.
I'm just less expressive in general, I think. But I still feel really happy about this. I think this was the right decision. Um, I suppose,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, so there is. there's still the I think that I'm probably over the risk of like infection or anything like that. I think it seems to have healed up okay.
What does the
Uh,
hole look like?
I mean, not really like I mean just like a little, you know, it's not a hole anymore. It's just
Can I
like
request ball pictures?
a
Like, not for you to show other
sure.
people. I'm just curious. I I want to see the rainbow balls, and now I want to know the hole looks like. And yeah, it's an interesting thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's not, you know, the funny thing is, my brother was actually asking me to see it. He didn't directly come out. He wasn't like, can I see your balls? But he was like asking questions about what it looked like. And then eventually he was like, so, you know, like, but what does it actually look like though? And I was like, Max, are you asking me to show you my balls? And I was like, look, Max, bear in mind, if you want to do this, you're going to have to get up pretty close to them because like there's not a lot to see. So you're going to have to get your face right in there. Uh, he chose
Did
not to
he?
do that. Yeah, no.
Oh, oh, that's unfortunate. I wish you could have teabagged him with your bruised and swollen balls. Although
Yeah.
from the sound of it, it was just like one day where they were just like, "Oh, you poked me, I'm angry," and then
Yeah,
otherwise,
well, I would say, I mean, I could, so they're still feeling a little bit tender now, and I think the bruising, I mean, it didn't look good, like it looked a bit weird, but it was easier than the whole process has been easier than I expected. I'll put it
I'll
that way.
send you the pictures of my belly button filled with surgical glue. It
Okay.
looks like the fucking eye of Soren. It's horrifying. It's like this bloody marbled mess. Because they didn't give me stitches, they just glued. They filled my belly button with glue, effectively. And
Nice.
it's not pretty. This was what, like 8 years ago, so my camera phone was also not that great. But it's a little horrifying. It was weird because it was like the sexiest thing I had ever seen, though. Because again, for the first time in my life, I was able to think of myself as just a sexual entity.
Because, yeah, because that's it. It's the end of the line. It's you know 4.5 billion years of things reproducing with other things and continue. You know, you can trace the line back. You can go back that far. This story, this 4.5 billion year story, you now know that it ends here, and it will never. It would like that's it. Um, and it should end here because this is as good as it's going to get. I mean, it's definitely not getting better than this. So this is an appropriate place for it to stop.
I'm surprised it was you who said that, not me. I thought I was the more conceited of the two of us. But yeah, and that's oddly empowering. I don't know. So my brother also decided he's not going. I don't know. I feel like he did positively affirm that he was intending to be child free. Um, he's in his 30s now, so like he's my younger brother, but I think he's older than you are. Yes, he's definitely older than you are. Um, and I saw him recently, and he was like, "Yeah, that's not happening," and it truly is. Like, we've just opted out, and I know that sounds horrifying to a lot of people. Like the prospect of this billions of years all adding up to us just saying like, "Nah, hard pass." But for me at least, it's hugely empowering. I'm like, oh shit, like I have just turned nature on its head and taken full possession of my own life. Like my purpose is entirely my own now.
Yeah.
And not that it wasn't ever, right? Because we've both just lived our lives making this choice every day, but it's
Well,
like the
yeah,
old
but
identification.
there's always the risk that you know the body might rebel against you and assert itself. And
Oh, well, I mean, I've had multiple abortions,
well,
so
I suppose for you there's perhaps less of a risk. I mean, well, I don't know because like abortion access is not. like guaranteed, right? I mean, that does depend on being in the right kind of environment. But uh, for me, I mean, I can't just have an abortion
Yeah, you have to
when
like trust
pregnancy is
the people you
caused
have sex
as a
with.
result.
I've always kind of felt bad for men because yeah, that requires a profound amount of trust. Like if you were just gonna hook up with someone. Um like, but now you've taken it back. So haha, you can get down with some slizzes and like not worry. That's a horrible term. I stand by it. And not worry about
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard slizzers before.
I
That's
pluralized it and that was weird, but again, I stand by it.
okay.
Yeah, it's so it cuts both ways, right? I do have the ultimate say so. I mean, and I do because I truly would off myself before I'd give birth. I mean, I just know myself, like in the process of trying to get rid of it, I would end up accidentally killing myself. Like something would happen. I know it. But I have always been the one who could draw the line, but also the threat is far greater, at least the bodily threat for me every time I have sex. Well, before I got my tubes tied. Uh like you have to have the money to do it, you have to have the resources to do it. I started having sex when I was 14, which was like more than 20 years ago. Oh my God. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm old. More than 20 years ago. And, now, well, prior to the Dobbs decision with our Supreme Court, access even for teenagers was pretty good. But when I got it, when I had my first abortion, I had to get a magistrate to sign off on a waiver of parental consent so that I could just go terminate a pregnancy when I was 14. I had just turned 15 when the judge signed the waiver. So I didn't have that agency or autonomy. I didn't have that control in my life. And it was horrifying. There's this thing devouring your body and your resources, this parasite, and you can't get rid of it. It's the relief of having that threat gone
Mm.
is so fucking nice.
I'm just curious, actually. Do you have to like do because you said that over time the risk of the tubal ligation reversing becomes greater. Do you have to like get that checked up? Is there something you do to check it every now and then?
Um, so I'm not, just to clarify, I'm not sure. I'm basic. I'm assuming that the risk increases over time because longitudinally the likelihood of tubal ligation failing, meaning a pregnancy occurring in somebody who has had a tubal ligation, increases over time. So it seems as though the likelihood of your tubes repairing themselves increases over time. I guess that's an inference, not an assumption. But anyway, I'm not sure if that's like
Okay.
based in statistical data. But no, there's no way to check. I had my tubes tied, and there was no follow up appointment. I could have gone in, but they would have just been like, "Oh, look, you're perfectly healthy." Um, okay, cool. They wouldn't like collect my period blood. Then like look for a decaying egg. That's what they'd have to do, right?
Okay. Right.
Um,
Well, I guess yeah, yeah.
yeah, which is horrifying sounding. Ugh. No, there's no way for them to check. And maybe they could check with an ultrasound, but I had them cauterize each tube 6 times. The doctor, I expressed my concern that I was young and healthy and hadn't destroyed my body with pregnancy. Uh, and I was concerned that it might reverse itself. And in fact, even after my car accident, I I got better in some really medically impressive ways. I used to joke that my uterus was made of adamantium because like despite like all the car accident and all the shit I had put it through, it was just like gonna make babies. So I expressed that concern, and he said that he would cauterize each tube 6 times to make sure that didn't happen. So I don't know what would go into it reversing, but if he had cauterized more, I guess there would have been a chance of necrosis, which, you know, I don't want to have necrotic tissue inside me, but seems better than a fetus.
Okay,
Wow, that
yeah.
was dark. Maybe I should
Well,
correct here.
you know, I don't really know actually what more there is to say about it. You know, it's done now. It's funny because when you get something like that done, I mean, it is a kind of surgery, and it feels like it's something that there should be a lot to say about it, but there really isn't. I mean, you know, I did it, it went fine, and there, you know, there wasn't much required in the way of recovery. I just sort of laid in my bed, and now that's that, and now I'm free of this
Aren't you glad you
horrible
let me
thing.
bully you into it?
Yeah,
You're welcome, Kane.
I am glad. I mean, yeah. I mean,
Oh,
it was
have
gonna, I
you
was gonna do
listened?
it. Like once I'd got it booked and everything, it was gonna happen. But of course, yeah. I mean, you know, I wavered a bit beforehand. I did,
Oh,
in fact,
of
not
course.
just a bit. Like I was wavering a lot. In fact, I think I sent you a message where,
You sent me one saying you're not going to do it.
did I say I wasn't gonna do it, or did I say like? I think what I said is that I now regard this as an extremely stupid idea, but I'm gonna do it anyway.
It
Like,
wasn't I'm going to do it anyway. You didn't necessarily. Yeah, you were like, I don't know what got into me. I don't know. I was thinking that that's so stupid. Why am I even bothering? Yeah, it was a lot, and it was definitely like not in the affirmative.
no,
um,
it wasn't. It was very negative. But I mean, that was just look. I'm kind of a hypochondriac. I worry about stuff,
kind
and
of, you're a diagnosed hypochondriac.
yeah, yeah.
It's not kind of.
When I say I'm a hypochondriac, just for the sake of the viewers, I mean like I actually I am officially a hypochondriac. I like officially have, as you say, been diagnosed with that and with panic disorder. Although the panic disorder isn't really such a problem anymore, but I think I still have a lot of the hypochondria still going on.
I think you handled this remarkably well. I just think it was funny. And also, if there's any way for you to tack on uh, your voice note to me while you were still high from general anesthesia um, to the end of this video, you should do that because you're like very high.
Really,
I
I
don't
don't
think
really even
you
remember
should
that
not
voice
have
note.
driven
That
yourself home.
okay.
That's not safe.
I didn't drive myself home. I got picked up.
Oh, good. I was worried. I was like legitimately concerned because you were audibly wrecked.
I found it fascinating actually. I've only ever had general anesthesia once before in my life. That was when I had my appendix out, and I don't really remember that these days. I should say, incidentally, that the most vasectomies they'll just do it under local anesthesia, but you know because I have this panic
The
disorder and
weird
hypochondria
voice.
and all that sort of shit going on, they recommended general. But anyway, um, the uh, the thing that was fascinating about it, I'm really glad I had it because it was a very interesting experience, even though it's riskier. I know it's riskier, I don't care. I came out of it perfectly fine. Um, it was fascinating because there was this experience of extremely rapid, time speeding up. So when I woke up from the general anesthesia, they put me in a bed just to rest afterwards. So they gave me some hot chocolate actually. That was quite nice. Uh,
Oh, that's
and
adorable.
anyway, so I was just laying in this bed, sort of sipping the hot chocolate, just kind of waiting. And then this nurse comes in and says, "Oh, okay. Do you want to try standing up now?" And I remember saying, like, "What already? I mean, that's a bit quick, isn't it?" And she says, "Well, you've been here over an hour." Um, and it felt like less than 10 minutes. Um, like, and then I noticed as well when I actually got home, I put a pizza in the oven and I put it on a 12-minute timer. And you sort of have a sense in your head of how much 12, and the timer went off, and I was sure that I must have put the wrong number in because it felt like about 3 minutes. Um, but I went down and checked, and no, the pizza was done. So there was this very interesting experience of um, like time dilation. It's or
I
time
have to get
time
you high next
acceleration.
time we hang out, is all I'm gonna say about that. But yeah, no,
Sorry, I
I
missed.
said I have to get you high the next time
Oh,
we hang
really?
out. Yes, I'm
Oh,
so sorry that you're enjoying that from general anesthesia, because that is the worst way to experience the effects of being high. Mine was terrible. Um, Apparently, I kept trying to roll over like during the surgery. And general anesthesia is common for a tubal ligation. In fact, I asked for an epidural, or if there was any way I could be awake during it, because I hate general anesthesia and it's risky and awful, and I won't do it. But they said no. So it was what it was. But apparently, I kept trying to roll onto my stomach during the surgery, and they're like, "Do you sleep on your stomach?" And I'm like, "No. Why are you asking me this? I'm high as shit." Um, they're like, "Well, you kept trying to roll over." And I was like, "I sleep on my side. You could have just done it on the side." They're like, "It doesn't work that way." And I'm like, "How do I have a better sense of humor than you in this moment?" And then apparently I quoted a bunch of Shakespeare, but it was in the interest of shit talking Faulkner. Um,
okay.
and then I woke up again in the car on the way home. I was a passenger, obviously. Um, Somewhere there exists a video recording of me shit talking Faulkner and then declaring that my vagina used to be a graveyard because motherfuckers died in there, but now it was a party house. It was a frat house. And this is belligerent, but really waking up from it is like having the worst hangover you've ever had.
Oh no, I felt great when I woke up from it. That I don't
Oh
know.
man, I did not. I don't like that at all.
I actually, I felt very, very bad when I went into the hospital. Um, in fact, I was. They did this test beforehand of like the blood pressure and heart rate and all that, and my heart rate was really high. It was like I was just sitting down. It was like 110, and they flagged this up to me, and I said, yeah, that is high because I have quite a slow resting heart rate normally. It's actually usually sort of 57, 58. Um, and then they sort of went away. They tested it again like 20 minutes later, and it was still really high. I assume it must have just been anxiety. But they gave me an ECG, and that came out perfectly fine. But obviously, I wasn't. I mean, I was feeling pretty uncomfortable. And then I went in, and obviously, I was out, and then I just woke up, and as soon as I woke up, I just felt this. It was incredible comfort, and like I was just sort of laid there, like very happy. Um,
And
and my
I'm
heart rate
amused.
was back down to like I don't know, it was like 70 or something.
Isn't that dead? I don't know.
70. 70's like
No, if
70's
your heart,
70's good.
okay. I was gonna say if your heart's beating, obviously you're not dead. But I think I have a good place where we could leave this. And it's something I've been thinking about since you and I last talked. And I'm not sure if it got cut off. It may have been some of the lost material, but we were talking about how we have this asymmetry between the kind of lives we want to live and what our bodies are doing to us. And the fact that people who want to have children but are infertile experience a very similar, like, body dysmorphia, but also trans people experience a very similar, report experiencing a very similar body dysmorphia. Ours is just like the easiest to fix if they'll let us. And I think that glow that we both experienced, you like in the day after, and hopefully into the future, and me for the past 8 years of just being able to, that affirmation, being able to do with your body what you know you want and what you've decided to do, being able to enact that. I think it's really important that we say that that's what that is, and everyone
Mhm.
should have access to that.
To be
It's
to be
insane,
absolutely clear, yeah, I feel a lot more comfortable in my own body now.
right?
Even with the slight tenderness in the balls, I still feel more comfortable with them.
Like that.
It's incredible that you don't feel the weight of what you were carrying around entirely until it's gone.
Yeah.
And just the relief of being in your body. Maybe not a perfect version of it. Like, I would still like a nose job, right? Like, I'm not saying we have to aim for perfection, but in these ways that matter deeply to us, in these ways that affect our day-to-day living, you cannot know just how life-changing it is to be able to enact that, to be able to enact your will on your body until you've done it. It's profound. It's amazing. And it has been 8 years since I had my tubes tied. And I've never stopped being just deeply grateful that I was able to do this. And I think that, oh man, I want everyone to have that. I really want everyone to be able to have that.